going on, guys? Hit pause here with something pretty cool that I managed to develop. It's nothing super groundbreaking or anything like that, but I still think that it's pretty freaking cool that it does in fact actually work. What I'm actually doing here is I have a Director AI Scout. You'll notice I have an EQS testing pawn here, and I have a spawner. So my EQS testing pawn is actually working quite sparsely, to be honest with you. I may need to tighten it up a little bit, but the theory, fundamental theory, is this guy is constantly using EQS to float around me and figure out where I can and cannot see within a certain radius, and this spawner is actually attached to it, and it follows it around, spawning enemies wherever this thing lands. So the spawner also has a check to see whether or not it can run a trace to the player before it spawns, and a distance check to make sure that nothing spawns too close and nothing spawns that's directly in my visibility. Now the trace kind of doesn't work great because it will spawn a spider behind another spider that's already there because it's hitting that. I got some stuff I got to work on, but other than that, the fundamental theory is pretty cool, and it's right here. So the Director AI controller and I have the Scout himself. I have a behavior tree, obviously, in a blackboard, right? And then I have a task that he runs, and it's pretty much as simple as that, plus my environment query itself. This EQS is actually what this guy's using. He's using the preview just so I could kind of get a sense of what it's actually trying to pick up here. So let's take a look at this one step at a time. So I have the Director AI Scout himself. And let's take a look at his graph, because it's the simplest one. Because it has absolutely nothing in it. Okay. What it does have is some components. Okay, it has a character movement component. I need that for being able to run. I actually don't need that, but I'm using it. I have a billboard to denote where he is. There's a mesh that was just inherited straight from the character class. There's an arrow component, and then the actual capsule. That's it. So it has that. It does have a AI controller, which does what the only things you need to do, basically. We load the behavior tree and we tell it what blackboard to use. That's it. Now in the details here, it is set to attach to pawn, so that the controller is moving around with the Scout himself. Now let's look at the behavior tree. So the behavior tree runs a query, then sets a spawn point, then waits. Then runs it, sets it, waits. Just loops through that over and over and over again. Okay. So the EQS query is my pathing distance query, and the blackboard key, I have basically one value in here called location to check. That's it. Nothing in there. So that's the key that this is querying, okay, and what will get returned. Then I run set spawn point, and the set spawn point is basically right here. Okay, so I get the controller, I get his control pawn, and then I cast it just to make sure. Then I set its location to the spawn point key, and the spawn point key happens to be spawn point location to check. So it teleports there. So every time I make a check, it just sets its location, doesn't move to, doesn't do anything. It's literally jumping around. We finish the execute, and that's it. And then it waits 2 seconds before running the EQS again. So let's take a look at the EQS query. It's relatively simple. This is actually going around player context. Let me show you that really quick. Player context is right here. Provide single actor, the player. That's it. So that's all that does. I have a 750 space between with 175 spacing, grid size of 750. Again, I'm going around the player context, and I haven't changed anything else. I trace the player on context visibility, which means Boolean match means that this is going to return to me the ones that I cannot see. So if it hits something, it basically scores it as a that point is a 0, and then if it doesn't hit anything, right? So it's got to hit something for that spot to count. I'm only doing score only, and again, I am using visibility, line, player context. Then I check the distance to player, basically within 0 to 750, which is the max range, and I prefer the greater one. So go to the greater one. Then what I do is, and these are set to, this one filters and scores, but this one only scores. Okay, this one basically sets anything between 0.8 and 1. I want a random one. Okay, that's it. That's the whole thing. So the spider spawner is doing its own spawning thing. It's a completely separate topic. It is in fact a much more robust system of events, but in essence what it does is check some counts to see, hey, is my total count higher than my max? You know, my current count, is it higher than the max? Do I have enough in my spawn pool? Because I can set the spawners to run out of spawns, meaning if I set it to -1 right here, then it's infinite. And then basically I ask the game mode if we can spawn an enemy. So the game mode is holding a count. So every time an enemy gets spawned, this gets moved up and down, and there's a max enemies allowed, which I've set to 40. So I cannot have more than 40 AI in the game at all, no matter what, and that is determined here because the spider spawner will always check that first. Okay, so on that branch, if it works, we go ahead and we spawn next. Now the very first thing that happens, however, is that that gets cleared just so it gets reset. It is set to looping, but I probably don't need to do that. But I set it to looping just in case something goes wrong with the code and it gets shot off onto some weird path and can't do it again. It'll at least try to run again. So on the begin play, I don't think I have anything weird. I'm picking up the game mode, checking whether or not it's active to start. If it is, we run check spawn count, which is what I just showed you. Then we run spawn next. Now spawn next just basically says, hey, are we active? If not, don't do anything. I want to get the distance to the player here, and then I want to run a trace. Okay, if it does not equal the player, then we go ahead and we spawn. If it did hit the player, meaning the spawner and the player can see each other, we just run and check the spawn count again. We just come up here again, which clears the timer immediately and goes through and checks again. So it'll just keep looping until it finds one that can't see me. Then we set the next spawn point. The next spawn point is quite simple. Just get the actor's location, meaning the spawner's location, within a spawn radius, which I can set, which is a exposed variable somewhere right here. Okay. Then we feed in the nav data. We tell the filter class to use recast. I add 50 units to it just so it pushes it up in the Z a little bit, and that becomes the spawn point, and that's where we spawn the class. I mean, to set the behavior tree, I am in fact going. I have it so that one spawner can spawn multiple types. I will need actually to be able, I'll need this to be a data tree once I add a new type, so that index 0 of the character list will also equal index 0 of the behavior tree array. So that'll be coming in the future. And then when we spawn, we pump the counts. We tell the game mode to update the enemy count, which means an enemy was spawned. Okay. If the enemy was spawned, we add one. If the enemy was killed, we subtract one. End of story there. Then I check the spawn count again. I also cast to this so that the SpawnManager itself, which would be the kind of my own thing here, will just add the character to my babies, meaning that you can the spawner knows which one of the spiders is its own spawned creatures. Okay. Again, we get the game mode. We check if it's nighttime. We check if we're spawning hostile. If we are spawning hostile, we give it a enemy. That's all this is doing. So there's nothing here that's weird about what this works completely here. You can see that I've got this one here is set to follow the director, and this one's basically active, not hostile, because I don't want them always just charging at me. But it's active and it's always following the director. This one, however, is not. This one will spawn hostile, but it doesn't start active. This one gets triggered right here by the NPC. So as soon as the NPC walks out right here, all the spiders from over here come charging towards him. Okay, but this one is actually also set to be turned off during the day. They're all set to be turned off during the day, but during the night, only these ones are going to spawn based on triggers. This one will be spawning at all times, but it's going to be following this guy. So what I'm going to do to show you guys how this is working is come here, and I'm just going to turn this guy to not be hidden. And then you'll see what he's doing. Hopefully I spawn in the freaking cage. I didn't actually change anything. Hopefully I spawn in the cage, because otherwise it's going to be kind of dangerous. But it does. It still actually keeps going in the nighttime. I mean in the daytime. And I'm not sure that I really want that, but I figured who cares. I'm not spawning anything. It's still just going around tracking where I can't see. Now, like I said, it's not perfect. The checks could be a little bit better, because it does sometimes pop up in a spot where I actually can see it, but for the most part it works pretty good. And I think it's a pretty creative method of using EQS, in my opinion. I like it. I think it's a great thing. EQS can definitely be used for more than just navigating. Okay, so here we are in the cage. It's nighttime. And if I hit F1, I could have swore I set that thing to be visible, but I may need to compile it. No, I compiled it. Was that the billboard? The billboard is not hidden in game. And compiled. Let's try that again. I'll go ahead and save everything. Nothing's broken. I'm loading it in a separate window in case there's a crash. I like to do it's actually a standalone game is how I like to load the game. It takes longer, but when you crash it's less detrimental because it only crashes the external app. Your editor can remain running. And yeah, you know, there's kind of always a lot of crashes no matter what. If you're really deep into it, you'll probably notice that too, unless you're a lot better than I am. Okay, so I can see him now. So there he is. Goes there. Now right now I can't see me because I'm actually in a protective like collision environment here where I cannot be hurt and I cannot shoot out of here. I can't shoot this guy, I can't shoot spiders, I can't do anything because I'm in a it's like a safety box. So that's why it thinks it can see me. And actually what it creates is this freaking scene right here, which I think is absolutely terrifying. Which I think is really cool looking because they're all out there and they're all pissed. As long as I stay in here, I'm safe. But if I kind of even poke out just a little bit, I mean, I almost died from that, just touching out that. That's how quickly they'll kill you if you step out of here. So then you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? So then you talk to this guy. He says, you do not want to go out there at night. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I already know that because I only have 10 health left. And then this guy tells you, you can wait until day. And you're like, oh, I can wait until day. So let me hit T. And then they all scatter. Oh, if they can, and then they're gone. So if they can't scatter, they delete themselves. So you'll see that this thing is going to constantly be tailing me around. Now, you can see it a lot because I have him waiting for 2 seconds, right? Which is a long time. It actually gives me plenty of time to round a corner and have him still be there. If I speed it up, you'll see it disappears almost, you know, immediately. But it is a 2-second thing. So if I speed that up, that'll be able to dance around a lot more and figure out where I can and cannot see. It'll be more consistent in that regard. But as you can see, he's always around me, no matter what. He's just teleporting himself to new areas. And what's cool is if I'm stopped, he's picking new spots. Okay, every 2 seconds he's going to pick a new spot. And that's the random in the EQS thing. Because I gave it a random saying, hey, you know, anything that got scored from 0.8 to 1, go ahead and randomly pick that. If you don't do that, if you're stopped, it's going to always stay in the exact same spot because it's going to score the highest point as your target. Because that's how EQS works. Whatever ends up with the highest score is like basically the output location. So in this case, we want to make sure that I don't want that to be too consistent. And there's really only a couple of choices for him to take right now because I can see everything that's immediately around me. He's never going to choose right there. And he's only going within a certain distance, so it's going to work pretty well in this regard. You know, that's within 750. It's over there. So if I turn this to nighttime, I'm going to get freaking mobbed. I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, I'm going to die, like pretty much for sure, assuming that they spawn. Like I said, they're not spawning hostile. If I spawn them hostile, this would be like hard mode for sure. Okay, so if I keep moving around, see right there, it didn't spawn one because it was too close to me and it was easily able to make a trace. But that's not always the case. See, like right there, well, I mean, they didn't see me because I haven't opened the door yet, right? So it's going to keep spawning them out there, but it'll spawn a few over here, and I actually just straight up died. But you can see they're spawning all around me, and hopefully out of view. So I think that this is actually a pretty cool method of doing it. I really quite pleased with this result. Like I said, not perfect, but it's there. The fundamental theory is clean, really clean. And just a few more checks and a few more smart, inclusions on what it, what it's looking for and stuff like that, and I'll be able to get this working really well. One of the things I would kind of like to do is maybe try to use this EQS system to determine a set of spawner objects. Because one of the things that I kind of don't like about my game right now is that the spiders are spawning kind of anywhere. They spawn like in the world, right? And I think, I haven't really decided yet, but I kind of want them to be spawning from actual like spawners, meaning like, let me turn it to day so I can run around here for a second, because this is insanity. And I kind of want to figure out a better method of getting them to scatter. Like I said, I want to have these like spawn points, something like this where they crawl in and out of, that you can't really close, but are really not that much of a threat. There's no threat in the day, like right now at all. In the final game, there's going to be some threat in the day. I'm actually going to toy with the idea of still having some of the spiders, but just way less, and actually have them like, like almost like scared in the most part. So like if you come up on them, you can kill them, but their first instinct is going to be to scatter, basically, not to charge at you, and not hear anything from you. But here we go. So if we look, he's around here somewhere. There he is. Now if I come in here, he should stop spawning in this general area right in front of me. Now in that case, the thing is I think there may or may not be a collision here. I mean, I have a trigger here, but I'm wondering whether or not, I don't think it can see through it, and the reason is because I actually have it set to block the trace from one of my earlier AI tests that I was showing you guys. Remember, I was having problems. If you guys have watched my videos, you'll know that I was having problems with the AI wanting to cross over this border. But in this case now, I've actually gotten rid of that border, but I never went in and told this collision right here to stop blocking traces. So he'll think that he can spawn out there for sure. But like I said, I'll be able to catch him. See, he's right there. He's right there. I don't know where he is now. These balls will block it, meaning that if I'm right here, it thinks I can't see anything over there, so it should be appearing over there relatively often, I would say. Yeah, see, it's right on the other side of the ball, which, that's kind of a thing like I don't exactly like, right? I mean, like, all I gotta do is go like this and I can see that there shouldn't have been any way that a spider could just materialize right there. The other option, excuse me for 1 second. The other option I'd like to explore is to create like a... This is much easier at, like in the outdoors where it's dirt, right? Because I can make them crawl out of the ground easy enough, and just give them an animation of them crawling out of the ground. That'd be great for ants and stuff like that. I can form an ant hill, and then I can have them all start spawning from it. Easy peasy, right? But in this case, I'm looking at like a carpet or a hardwood or a tile floor or something like that, where it isn't really feasible for something to crawl out of the ground. I was almost considering making a dome actor that's kind of like a blended dome that moves along the ground, that has a world position representation of this carpet material, right? And would actually, like, you'd see a lump moving, across the ground. I kind of thought of that. That might have been a cool idea. And then have it burst out when it gets close to you, right? And then just make a mesh of the carpet burst out, and have it, as long as it's a little bit above this mesh. And the cool thing is, and which may or may not be cool, is the fact that this carpet is in fact completely 100% like mathematically flat. There is no change in elevation here whatsoever. So I could get away with something like that. I kind of wanted to go in and maybe put like some wrinkles in the carpet and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, I've got these here that I can spawn from. I mean, I can always spawn out of boxes and spawn from underneath stuff, and have them come out from underneath things, or come out of this box or something like that. As long as you're not in there, they'll come out. But I mean, the thing is, it's like, one quick gander here and you'd be like, where are they coming from? But it's, I mean, you can't worry about the realism of everything at all times, because then you're going to limit yourself completely. Because if I was going really realistic, there would be like one or two spiders in this house, and it would sit there and not do anything, and once you approached it, it would fall off it would just fall off the wall, that's all it would do. So, it wouldn't actually like attack anybody, so I'm not going full realism. So I think what I'm doing right now is actually pretty cool. If I come up here and I turn it to the nighttime, so here we go with the night, you can see they all start spawning. And if I watch the spawner, it's actually going to want to place itself like right on here with me, and that's another problem. They actually think they can get to me. Well, it's actually in that drawer right now. And here's something really, really cool that is just holy crap, I'm getting, oh my god, they're all up here. What the heck, I'm dead. I'm so gonna die. I gotta get out of here. Are you guys in here too? Oh, they are shooting. They are shooting. They're coming. I'm boned. There's no way I live. Oh, and I just boxed myself in. So it presents a relatively dynamic situation here. Oh, I saw it coming too. Dang it. That's alright. But yeah, so they can officially spawn kind of anywhere and all around me, and that's really, really neat. So, show you guys one more time. This is the meat of it right here, is this right here. So, we're doing player context, okay, visibility, score only, Boolean match, very important. Distance to player context is just this right here, random, that's it. And again, the task on it, the actual task, is right here. We just, every time we receive the execute, we tell it to just teleport. And teleport does in fact take things along that are attached, which I've had engines in the past where it didn't do that. You actually had to move the object really fast in order for something that was attached to move. But in this case, no, it will actually attach. So here's the director actor, and again, I can just click this and go boom. I could have another director with different rules and a different spawner that follows that one, say for air or a completely different type, ants or I don't know, a big tarantula or something that can figure out where he's supposed to come out of. And like I said, I could in fact make this going around determining which is the closest one of these, as opposed to just attaching the spawner right to it. We use EQS to figure out which one of the actual spawn locations I can't see. And because I have spider egg sacs that the spiders will actually spawn out of, I actually have them animated and everything. I just haven't implemented them yet, but I was thinking, I could hang them off of different stuff and then drop the spiders out of them. And you could go around and destroy them, and they would keep spitting out a bunch of enemies. It'd be kind of like a first-person Gauntlet in a sense. The first Gauntlet, the first arcade where you had to run around destroying all the generators. So I was going to do that, and then the generators, can respawn over time, like slowly, every 10 or 15 minutes you get a new one, so you clear out the room, but, after a while, a new one will generate somewhere where you can't see, right? So maybe it'll be another, EQS system or something to determine which one I'm farthest away from and stuff like that, and then I can start dropping spiders again. So, yeah, hopefully you guys found that interesting and useful, and open your eyes to a little bit more, always try to take what tools you have and use them for something different. You don't have to always use them for something different, but they are there, and they do a certain you know, this thing has a certain thing that it's doing, right? It's bouncing around figuring out where I can't see. So there's like a million things you can do with a location that the player can't see. I mean, spawning enemies is like the first on a very long list of things that you could do there. Obviously cover nodes, things like that, you know, they're coming out with the hotspot system, perception system, all that stuff. It's all going to make everything even greater. This is in fact the greatest engine in the world, and I'm happy to be on it. So thanks for watching. Hit pause, signing off. Holy shit, dogs.